Welcome to everyone. We want to start this week right after Pesach. We've had a beautiful Passover over here in Eretz Israel. We went to visit Rabbi Ginsburg in on Shvi Shel Pesach for the famous Baal Shem Tov Seuda, the meal, the Seudat Mashiach. Um, Very famous that the Baal Shem Tov instituted a new minhag, which was, I mean, it seemed to be an older Kabbalah minhag, but the concept is that on Shvi Shel Pesach is a good time for Mashiach, and therefore we drink the four cups just like in the first night of Passover, the Leila Seder, and we also eat matzah, and with that we think of Mashiach and we connect to Mashiach. And Rabbi Ginsburg gave a very inspirational talk about that. We'll probably talk about it more next week. This week, we want to talk about something very simple. But before we start, we obviously want to say that this study group that we do to look into the wonders of the week from Rabbi Ginsburg is Be'ezrat Hashem for very strong and refuah shalema, very strong health. To first our Rabbi Ginsburg, Rav Yitzchak Feibish ben Breina Malka, and to our friend Bluma Bat Ginan Del Tova. We also have ETL's son, Avraham. What's his name, Elazar?
Avraham Shimon ben Milka.
Avraham Shimon ben Milka, and my son, Levi Ovia ben Ayala, and my son's still in the hospital, baby Ben Ayala. They should all have very strong health. We know that the food of Passover, the famous matzah, is called Meichala de Memnuta and Meichala de Asuta, which means the food of faith, emuna, and the food of refuah. So with eating this special food of refuah, just something very interesting that I saw saying about there's a very famous investigation or look into the what's called the palzibo, the fake medicine. That many times many researches were done about medicine that was fake. Basically, they put someone in a room that was not. Someone was not walking well, and they put him in the room and basically put him to sleep and woke him up as if he had a surgery. And amazingly speaking, scientifically in research, that he started walking, meaning that what's hurting him was something the body could have healed himself, but it didn't. And with this fake operation, it did. And the question is, what did this operation add? Same thing. I'm sure people know it with their kids or with kids that they see, with my kids especially, that whenever they say, oh, my head hurts or something, you can take anything. You can take, I take some honey, I put it on put it on something, I don't know, you just take it with a spoon and just tell them, here's some medicine, and then they eat the honey, and now you're supposed to feel better. And it works many times. So what was added when we take all this fake medicine? What was added? Was added to the body was emuna, was faith. The same thing when we eat matzah, we have faith that's added to us. Meichala de me'emnuta, the faith in Hashem that our forefathers had in Egypt, that we're gonna go quickly, and they bake their matzah, and with that there's refuah. And Rabbi Ginsburg, like I said, next week we'll go more into that. This week we want to go into a very special concept that Rabbi Ginsburg elaborates on, and that's why I put the screen back to this shiur in the Wonders of the Week. This is a shiur that Rabbi Ginsburg gave in Chol HaMoed. And in this class, he speaks about the concept of whole, of a full and half, meaning there's a concept in Kabbalah, and Rabbi Avram Abulafia is the first one to speak about it. But it's a it's a very basic and fundamental concept in Judaism and Kabbalah and Hasidus and everything that we do in the Baal Shem Tov, and the concept of full and half. And Rabbi Ginsburg will elaborate on this, and as we are going to study together. But the basic idea is that being full is not enough. That when you have something full, it does not allow for it's missing something. So when God was everything in this world, He wanted to have this world. So He basically made something, which is this world, which is half, which is needed, which is less than full. And with that, creating 1.5, now there's something whole that comes out of it. So it's a bit complex. I know we'll get into it a little bit more. Okay, so first we'll go into what Rabbi Ginsburg is saying. First thing Rabbi Ginsburg speaks about is obviously the Yom Huledet that we had, the birthday of our Lubavitch Rebbe, that he was born 119 years ago, and we know that when a neshama, when a tzaddik was born, we're all tzaddikim. So every year it's a very famous minhag to read the chapter of Tehillim that you're going into. So in the first year that a baby's born, usually the parent reads for him Perek Aleph, the first chapter of Tehillim. And then as he becomes his first birthday, when a kid is 1, we read chapter 2. Same thing on the birthday, the 119th birthday of the Lubavitch Rebbe, we read his chapter, which is chapter Kuf Kaf, 120. Now, there's something very special about this chapter that Rabbi Ginsburg speaks about. It starts 15 chapters that are special by himself. They're called Shir HaMa'alot. There's 15 Shirei HaMa'alot, and there's an explanation why are they called Shirei HaMa'alot and who said them. We'll get into that shortly. But what's interesting to see is that the full book of Tehillim that King David composed is 150 chapters. So if you want to take a tenth of it, Siri Yekodesh, that 1 out of 10, which is a very big concept in Judaism, so 1 out of 10 is 15, meaning 15 out of 150 is 1 out of 10. And if we want to take the book of Tehillim and say it very condensed and say it quickly and have the whole book of Tehillim within us, we can say these 15 chapters of Shirei HaMa'alot. I will say, spoiler for next week, that Rabbi Ginsburg said that the Baal Shem Tov really wanted us to know Tehillim, to say Tehillim, the book of Tehillim. He would ask the simple Yidden to just say Tehillim, and we know that every Jew in history since King David, every simple Jew, every Jew that wanted to connect to the basic, to the simplicity, to prayer, the simple prayer, connected to this book of Tehillim. And these 15 chapters is a condensed version of it. There's various ways to condense. We know that Reb Nachman from Breslev created the Tikkun HaKlali, took 10 chapters and created a big tikkun of fixing, a big repair of what's broken. But again, we're talking about these 15 chapters, and obviously Rabbi Ginsburg created, for the birthday of the Lubavitch Rebbe, created a nigun, composed a melody for the beginning of this chapter. Since I want to save you guys from the horrific experience of hearing me sing it, so I'll let you can go into the video, I think it was recorded, and hear the Rav singing it. but for right now, we'll continue. So the verse that Rabbi Ginsburg sang, the Shir Hamalot, El Havaya, Betzarat Ali Karati V'Yaneni, that the beginning of this Shir Hamalot is that I was in trouble, in a tzara, under trouble, and I called to God, karati, vayaneni, and he heard me. So this is very much connected to the holiday of Passover, that we call Hashem from our troubles, and obviously we all have troubles, and this whole world was created with troubles, and we call God from this trouble, and He answered me. Now, what is this pasuk that we sing of calling God from trouble? Mina Meitzar Karati Yudke. That this is the name of God. That's also could be referring to these 15 chapters, because Yudke, the name of God, that's composed of two letters. Yud, the letter Yud, which numerically is 10, and Hey, which is 5, is 15. And these Mina Meitzar Karati Yudke, I called, you could say, it could hint to that when you have trouble, you can read these 15 chapters of Tehillim, and then Anani Bamerchavya, that Hakadosh Baruch Hu answers me and opens me up to a wide, let's call it redemption, a wide salvation from the trouble that I had. In general, we speak about this pasuk in Rosh Hashanah, that we know the shofar that we blow on Rosh Hashanah is very small in the side that we blow, and it gets bigger, and that hints to the fact that we call God when we're very small, when we are in small mind, narrow-minded, whether it's because of external problems or internal problems. We're narrow-minded and we call God, and then He answers us. We become open and wide, and are able to see bigger picture and understand and connect to a bigger concept. So this whole pasuk is connected to Rosh Hashanah, but it's also connected to Pesach. Pesach is pei. Pei is the mouth. Sach is to speak. That the mouth can speak. That we know that the trouble of Pesach is that we were captured. We couldn't talk. When someone is under great trouble, he usually say, "I can't talk right now." It's a lot of trouble. And then when he's redeemed, when there's salvation, he can open up and speak. So now we know that all of our Chagim, all of our holidays are Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, are to remember this redemption, the first redemption, that we were redeemed from Mitzrayim. Okay, someone asked in the chat, so I appreciate people that speak, that connect us. It's very simple. I mean, I'm not going to put it in the chat because it's relatively it's relatively big, but relative to the chat. But you can just look it up. It starts from chapter 120 in the book of Tehillim and ends at 135. So you can look it up on Google or anywhere else, and see these 15 chapters. Now, Rabbi Ginsburg says that what are these two things that we're looking, two basically point of views that we have. The one we said is very narrow-minded, and the other is wider. That's the same way that we spoke, and we spoke about this, and I think we explained it a little bit about the 4 sons. That on top of the 4 sons, there's the father. The father looks at the bigger picture, looks at you're putting together a seder, you're putting the table together. When you're the father figure, you look at the whole table. When you're the son, you look at it from your angle. You ask your questions. So that's two ways of looking at it. Looking at it all in one shot, which is related more to the concept that we spoke about last time of Adam Kadmon, which is a very high level of God before he created these worlds. That he looked at everything in one shot, one big view, and then once you get into this world, you have you have the second eye. Usually, when we have two eyes, one eye, usually the right eye, just like when we have two hands, usually the right hand is a stronger hand. But being stronger means you're to the point, while the weaker hand and the weaker eye gives you the ability to have 3D imaging. We know that if we only would have had one eye, we would be only able to see things in 2D. The fact that we're able to translate, that our mind can translate things to 3 dimensions, is because we have two eyes. So the one eye looks the bigger picture, but looks forward, and the other eye looks wider. That secret of an eye that's weaker and an eye that's stronger, which, by the way, we know that Rabbi Ginsburg, whenever he looks at something, he looks at the time, he looks at what God is trying to tell him. And unfortunately, Rabbi Ginsburg, one of his eyes is having some issues. May he have good health. And he went to the doctor for it before Passover. So I think ETL also wrote it, that this also started this deep investigation into what do we have two eyes for? What are we supposed to see with that? But again, seeing with these two eyes, that one eye is seeing a bigger picture, and the other eye is focused more, and creating this 3D is the same secret that we spoke about, which is the full and half, which is a secret in Kabbalah, the whole and half, that we have one that's usually stronger, that you would think is full, meaning, let's take it a step back and explain a little bit more. When God looks at everything as one, when God was one before he created the world, was it better? Yes, it was a full, it wasn't even a world, it was full of God. But then God wanted to create a situation where there's a world that's half. And out of that half world, he was able to create a separate reality, not really separate. We know that the famous saying that Kabbalah says that the tzimtzum, the narrowing of God's bigger view into the small world, doesn't mean it's really like that, because everything is still within him. But it does create, even if something is not simple, it does create a reality which is needy, which is not full, which is half, and that reality can pray to God, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. And in general, I like to tell my kids is you should try to tell a story when nothing bad happens. Nothing bad, everything was good. You didn't need to go anywhere. Even when you say, okay, someone went from one place to the other, something was bad, meaning he needed to be at that place and he wasn't there and he had to go there. So every story in this world, anything that happens, have to have something that wasn't full, that wasn't fulfilled. Because when everything is full, as we say, it's boring. There's no story. So those two things, those two eyes, they sing in Nishmat Kol Chai. What do we say? Ve'eneinu ma'irot, that our eyes are lighting up, just like Keshemesh ve'yareach, like the sun and the moon. That we have the sun that's full, that just gives light, and the moon is dark on its own and only reflects back the light, and that the whole moon and sun, and which is just like the two tzaddikim that are compared to the moon and the sun, which is Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses is the sun, and Yoshua, Joshua, the famous Joshua that brought us into Eretz Yisrael, was the moon, and we know that what is the what is the core difference in the way that Moshe and Yoshua were? That Moshe was to the point. He went into Egypt and got us out. He was a very strong and moving forward type of guy, very fast doer. While Yoshua was someone that's very slow and let's call it methodical, very what's a good way of saying it? Detail oriented. Let's just say, just for the sake of explaining. Meaning, when you have Moses that just goes and get it, and you have Yoshua that looks into every detail, that creates something whole, something full. And we know that there were inner inclusion between them. That Moses had. What's the problem with each way? If you're slow and you look into the details, many times it leads to laziness. Obviously, the tzaddikim were not the chas v'shalom lazy, but the actual fact of being methodical creates laziness. And the same thing when you're quick, it creates lack of attention to details, creates narrow-minded versus wider. And we know that Yoshua that brought us to Eretz Yisrael, Eretz, which the pasuk says on it, that the land of Israel is good, tova, rechava, and wide. The word rechava is just like Yoshua who married Rachav. So that's the fullness of Moshe and Yoshua is being able to put them together. That when they're working together, I'm going to say something that Rabbi Ginsburg will say forward, is that this is like a husband and wife. That normally, and again, just like normally we have the right hand that's stronger than the left hand for most people, and some people it's the opposite. The same way, mostly the husband is very go-getter to the point, just get it done, and the wife is very thorough and detail-oriented, as we said. So working together, just like our two eyes work together, our two hands work together, a husband and wife that work together and really listen to one each other, and the husband slows down for the wife, and the wife creates a wide vessel, a wide opportunity, meaning she doesn't narrow it by chas v'shalom being lazy, but rather she gives him more and more idea of how to take his ideas and put it into flourishing without ruining things in the meantime. That's what creates unity. And the same thing about the sun and the moon, that there's a time of the month where the sun lights up the moon half or a little bit, but then there's a time where it's fully lit, which is the middle of the month. And the middle of the month, which we know, by the way, we spoke about this in Wonders a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a couple months ago, that the first Rebbe of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, always wanted his mezuzahs to be written in a full moon, where the moon becomes full, and we know that I'm going to skip a couple of things, but Ein B'Ain Yir'u B'Shuv Hashem Tzion, that the two eyes, Ein B'Ain, gives those two things in unity. We'll see where God comes back to the land, and Tzion is the land of Israel, but in general, it's redemption. Now, this concept of full and half could be with anything. For example, with the word bow. Bow is the number 2 and the number 1, bet and aleph, numerically, and dove, etc. Everything that the ratio of it is 1.5, meaning, for example, 2 and 4, 1 and 2, etc. That could be a ratio of shalem v'chetzi, but of full and half. But the main ratio that we know that 10 is a full picture, a full full face, a full outlook of things in Torah, and represented by the letter Yud. So that's the one, the full, and then half of it is the letter Hey, and together when you put them together, Yud and Hey, you create the name of God, Yud K. So that is the main full and half that we see in Torah. And where is that put into place? It put into place, and it's really looked upon where you have the man and the woman, the ish ve'isha, that the word ish, man, is composed of the letter aleph and shin, and then yud in the middle. And if you take the aleph and shin, also isha, woman, is aleph, shin, and hey. And there's aleph and shin, the same two esh, fire, but then the hey at the end. So what we see is the name of God, Yud K, is put into a man and woman, and we know that if they are zoche, if they, the literal translation, if they are, if they win, if they are gifted the gift of God being with them, then it's the name of God, Yud K, is there. But we know also that's also hinting to zoche, like zikuch, to work on yourself. That if a man and a woman work on themselves and really look at the core tikkun, the core purpose of their being here in this world, they're connecting to God by this name. And this name is Shalem V'Chetzi. That what are these two things connected to? They're connected to things that we speak about a lot, simcha and anava. That there's happiness, that the famous verse that we say, a Hasidic verse that we say is, there's nothing whole, ein davar shalem, there's nothing whole, milev shabur. There's nothing more whole and full than a broken heart. When someone has a broken heart, which reflects to another modesty, when someone is modest, there's nothing wholer, meaning there's nothing full and whole more than a broken heart. And that two things, simcha, on the other hand, being full, being happy. Happy is someone that has everything, that is full. And anava, being able to say it in a modest way, that creates the wholeness of 1.5 that we spoke about. The 1.5 in Kabbalah creates something that's whole, that has also the full and the half. That if someone has only the full, you would think that he's everything, but no, someone that's full of himself does not have room for anyone else. But someone that's half is lacking. So someone that's 1.5 is really everything. And that leads to what we're trying to speak over here, which is the secret in Kabbalah of 1.5. We'll continue forward. We don't have a lot more time. Rabbi Ginsburg says that a beautiful place that this is put into flourishing in the holiday of Passover, and we'll speak about a couple places. But the first place is when we come to take out all the chametz. We say de lo de chazitei u de chamitei. That when we say, if I saw something, if I saw it in a way of chazitei and in a way of chamitei. And what is the difference? So there's a couple of explanations. One of the explanations is chazitei is ever. When I ever saw, if I any chametz that I ever saw, and chamitei is in this checking. Any chametz that I saw while checking the bdikat of chametz. So we see that there is a concept of a wider picture, anything in the world that's chametz that's connecting to me, and there's a narrower picture of anything that I saw right now when I was checking. So everything together, we are being mevatel. We're making hefker, making it nothing. In the case, nothing to us. It's not related to us anymore. Both of these things. Also, we know that the famous Kriyat Yamsuf, when we read the Shirat Hayam, Az Yashir Moshe, it's written 1.5 a 1.5, and it looks like a brick building. Anyone can look it up online of Shirat Hayam. The way it's looked in the Torah, it looks like a brick building, and that brick looks like 1.5. Every time there's 1.5, and that together creates the full wholeness of Pesach, of redemption. And also famously, and I'm sure everyone that had the beautiful experience of Leila Seder, in general, there's many people that could be watching us on YouTube, so I try to make it as basic. So even a non-Jew that did not have a Seder, or unfortunately Jews that were not part of it, could connect. But what we do is we have 3 matzahs, and we take the middle matzah and we break it. We to break it, it's not really half, it's to a smaller piece and a bigger piece, and we say the whole saying of the Haggadah Shel Pesach. The whole story of Pesach is said on the half matzah, on the part that's broken, and that is the redemption. The redemption is from that broken matzah, the broken part within us. Obviously, it's relating to that. Also, we have the motzi matzah that we say hamotzi, the blessing of God giving us food in general, relating more to bread, and then matzah, the blessing of God giving us this matzah that night. And we there's different explanations which one is which, but the explanation that we're going to take here is that motzi that we say is on the full matzah, and matzah is on the half matzah, and that creates the 1.5. We also know that there's 15 simanim in Leila Seder. There's 15 signs, Kadesh Uchatz. We spoke about it a little bit last week. So the middle one, the Shvi'i, is this motzi that we say on the matzah. So lots of things that we can learn here. And with this, we'll end, and we'll try to kind of wrap it up and put it together. Also, try to relate it a little bit to us. That when we look at things, we can see something that's whole, that's full, that's happy, and we can see something that's half, that's lacking, that's missing, that's needy in this world. And we have to understand that redemption is looking at both of them together, taking the world to come, taking God, taking happiness, and bringing it to the half part. That we say that this is the same thing that we say in the first chapter that we're reading in the 15 chapters of Shir HaMa'alot. El Hashem batzarat eli, that I'm needy, I'm in sorrow, I'm in trouble. Karati, that we call God. Vayaneni, and He comes, and God is full, God is whole. God can make us all whole, whether it's refuah, whether it's emuna, and we know, and again we'll speak about it more probably next week, that this food of Passover, the main food of Passover is faith. It's giving us faith. That the worst thing that a person could have is Egypt, which is just having work and work and work and work, and that's it. Not seeing anything within it. Sometimes even the worst of the worst is not even knowing that you're missing something. A guy could be working his whole life and just not knowing that he's missing a whole level in this world, a level of wholeness, of full, of faith, of connection to God, that connection to something that's whole, that's not needy, that's not weak, but we want to keep this needy part and bring it up and elevate it within us, just so we know that David HaMelech, King David, would always talk about himself, Vayiti shafal be'enai, that I'm lesser in my eyes. I'm on a lower level. Anochi tolad velo ish. I'm a worm and not a person. I'm cherpat adam uvzuyam. I'm embarrassed. Why is it so important for King David to say that he's embarrassed? Why is it so important to have these bad things, to be unwhole, to be half? Because that half creates a full unity together when it's being elevated with God's unity, with God's fullness, it creates what I like to call a full story. And that story is the story of redemption. That in redemption, what we'll be missing is the ability to be needy, to ask God from where we need Him. So we should connect to both of these sides. We should connect to our need, our less perfect side, and we should connect to the fact that we have God with us. And God and the mercy, the rachamim, the mercy of God with us allows us to be full. So we can be full and be half at the same time. And that is this very big secret in Kabbalah that Rabbi Ginsburg speaks about many times. And this is what this class that we just studied together is about. And everyone should take that, obviously taken from our main holiday that we just came out of, holiday of Passover, where God redeemed us and elevated us. We should also, within these days of counting of the Omer, that we try to elevate and include every part of creation, of the broken pieces that we're putting together, which is us, to try to create unity within God, which is the Shavuot, which is Torah. So with that, we'll leave a minute or two. If anyone has any questions, we can elaborate on something. But very important concept in Kabbalah, which we just reviewed. Beautiful wonders from Rabbi Ginsburg. And again, I urge everyone to open the wonders that we have, whether it's you have a link for it online, or in many shuls we have the actual booklet that we try to put in shuls, and learn from these beautiful wonders how to connect.